Ah, Gordon. Here you are. We just sent the sample down to the test chamber.
We've boosted the anti-mass spectrometer to 105%. Bit of gamble, but we need the extra resolution.
The administrator is very concerned that we get a conclusive analysis of today's sample. I gather they went to some lengths to get it.
They're waiting for you, Gordon, in the test chamber.
There's a certain moment in the original Half-Life that has stuck with me over time. I can picture it very clearly. No, it isn't the one with the ichthyosaur. Definitely though, the water levels of Half-Life will always give me anxiety, but this isn't what I'm talking about. It's this one. There's something very visceral to me about this moment. There's the scientist on the bridge. It looks like this is where you're supposed to go, but as you approach, the room shakes. Then, a moment later, the bridge collapses, and he, clinging for dear life, quickly falls to its doom. When I first played this part, I didn't actually register what he had said. Half-Life is a fast-paced game, and I was a nervous player, so I was far more interested in hearing the sounds of the enemies than I was necessarily paying attention to the scientists, who, at this point, hadn't really been all that much help, to be honest. So in the suddenness of the death, I was surprised. Enough definitely to give me pause. But since the game was very much still afoot, and the moment had passed, I moved on, rather quickly. With Black Mesa, the remake of Half-Life 1, more or less done, I thought about that moment again. The scientist is of course scripted to die. All of them are. Throughout the facility you will find moments like these replicated as the story is told. The scientists of Half-Life will, generally speaking, bumble their way into barnacles or get shot by the HECU that they think is there to help them. They are, for a lack of a better word, disposable. Even though Black Mesa doesn't really make sense, certainly not if OSHA has anything to say about it, the world of Half-Life makes it feel narratively real. The characters, as crude as their reactions might be, certainly evoke the sense that they're people in the midst of an unfolding disaster. I think about that moment with the scientist on the bridge for a lot of reasons. There is enough time, if you're a quick player, to shoot him. And in choosing between death via gun or an agonizing fall to the darkness, I'm not sure which one I would prefer, but I have to wonder, in that moment, what would he want? However, you can't save the scientist on the bridge. In fact, you can't save anyone. It isn't until Blue Shift, an expansion pack for Half-Life, that you actually get to see people leave Black Mesa alive. But Gordan definitely can't save anyone. The NPCs can't really follow you, certainly not on the paths that you take through the facility. Many of them in fact seem frozen in place. For someone in that situation, being frozen with fright might be a realistic way of responding, but many of the NPCs just seem stuck. It could just be a bug. Some of them might have suffered a gory end, but some glitch in programming prevented it. But many of them just seem stuck, frozen in wherever they are, surrounded by whatever it is that they are, without really much of a purpose beyond some line or two, and then you move on. Lots of games have moments where characters die. After all, the death of characters is a long-held storytelling convention. Characters and stories die all of the time, and their purpose with that death is to give you, the audience, a sense of emotion. Fear, sadness, tension. These are things that a story can evoke when some of its characters die. The unfolding tragedy of Black Mesa is in part told to you by the small tragedy of its victims, their gory deaths in the dark facility. Unlike, say, a book, a video game is interactive. You play it as much as it plays you, emotionally, that is. And the currency that facilitates this transaction is violence. In most video games, it's violence, but in a game without a story, the violence is abstracted away. It becomes far less meaningful. Compare Space Invaders to Far Cry 3. The loss of a ship represents the death of its crew, perhaps, and the death of the player maybe represents the end of the planet, our species' extinction. but it doesn't really feel like anything when you blow up one of the pixels and a ship explodes. In Far Cry 3, however, you have characters who you feel like they live and breathe and how they relate to you. If one of them dies, it feels, at least it should, that you might lose something.
I love you. Don't leave me.
I'm sorry.
But Gordan doesn't really feel anything, does he? Gordan is a silent protagonist in the truest sense of the word. Even Master Chief, whose face we've never really seen, has a personality. He's just very terse. He is a character that we get to play as, but in a sense, Gordan is us. Since he never reacts, and the characters only react to him in a very loose sense, Gordan is a much truer blank slate character than most others in video games. He fits into a story, that's for sure, but he also fits into it in a way that is dictated by how the player chooses to play him. You can, if you want, kill all the NPCs in the story, some in very gory ways. You can play Gordan as an entirely sadistic man whose saving of the planet is merely an obligation rather than a duty, something that he just happens to do, but not because he wants to. You can play him as a desperate survivor who is just rushing from one moment of safety to the next. It's entirely up to you. When I saw that scientist fall on the bridge, I loaded the game again. I wanted to see if I could do things differently and not make him fall. Perhaps if I had stepped a bit more slowly, maybe if I hadn't approached the bridge. There are many little moments in this game where narrative immersion can't be programmed for. This is when the player's emotions and feelings and what they're experiencing about the game actually draws them in deeper. It's a little thing that makes Half-Life so memorable, and it all starts at that one moment in the test chamber. Well, today's video is a bit different, since I'm just gushing about a video game that I really like. You'd have thought the quarantine would make it easier to make videos, but that's not exactly been the case. Still, I've got a couple of ideas that I'm working on, so look out for those in the future. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, comment your favorite moment in Half-Life if you've played it, and let's all try to get through this together. Stay safe, everyone. Goodbye.